Welcome to Fiction in Focus, a podcast where we explore the craft of writing without taking ourselves too seriously. I'm Nathan Harms.
And I'm Wesley Watts. Each episode, we'll discuss uplifting topics like the soul-crushing pressure of expectations, the suffocating grip of self-doubt, and the swift kick in the unmentionables of rejection.
We'll share our experiences, struggles, and heartaches in the hope that you might find some small measure of comfort in our collective misery, or at least have a laugh at our expense.
So grab a pen, paper, and your favorite writing snack, and join us as we put fiction in focus.
Welcome, word nerds, to Fiction in Focus. I am Nathan Harms, and we have Wesley Watts. Sorry, I interrupted him.
I was about to introduce myself, but that's okay. No one needs to hear from me. That's fine.
It's fine. So if you're tuning in and you're listening to us for the first time, stop and go back an episode at least, because this is a part 2 of our last episode, and we are discussing AI in writing, our overlords, Skynet, if you will.
AI and AI accessories.
AI and AI accessories. So as a quick recap, we read something last week that was generated by AI, and we were both
it was
very
award-winning.
Very disappointed by it. And then we kind of started. We started the conversation talking about ways you could use AI as a tool, essentially. And also owning the fact that if you are using it, if you feel okay putting that, if you feel okay telling people like, hey, I use it to help edit my book, then you're probably okay, right? Like you're owning it kind of thing. But if you feel a moral ickiness about it, then maybe you're doing something wrong. So we're trying to be as subjective as we can. I want to point that out. And we're both kind of we have our opinions and stuff like that, but we're also I feel like we're pretty good at the devil's advocate thing of just like I could see where a young writer would be tempted by this or whatever the case may be. So we're not shaming anybody, at least not yet. We'll get there.
That's for this episode.
That's for this episode. All right, so now I'm going to jump into the gray areas. So these are areas where I've messed around with some of this and used some of this, and some of it I haven't, and I really think the context is key. And this is probably going to be our biggest part of the show, honestly, because this is where it gets murky, right? It gets really murky. So I'm going to run through them really quick and then revisit. I'm going to rehash them. So the gray areas I have using it for story ideas, outlines, restructuring areas, and reworking a line here and there. Now, to me, this is where it gets really murky, right? Because this starts to become how much of the prompt is your original idea that's really damn near the finish line and you're just trying to polish something. Or say you're like, I really want to write a sci-fi book that takes place here and this happens and that there, and then it's going to have these characters there. Like, can you like feed that into an AI generator and say, hey, can you give me like an outline for this? So you've had the original idea and all that, but it's just going to take your stuff and restructure it so it's listed out, right? I haven't done that, so I don't even know how good it would be at that. What I do use it for, and I will totally, I'm going to own up to it right now, is if I'm having trouble with a certain sentence, especially, I will feed it into AI and ask it to make variations of that sentence. If I'm just having trouble wording something, like I just don't know how to say it. It's not like, and it's not like I'm like feeding in the whole thing and just being like, go. And usually whatever it gives me, I heavily edit anyway, because I don't want it to be like, you know what I mean? I don't want to read that part and be like, that was AI generated. I just want to say, oh yeah, there it is. And so then I go back through and give it my own voice, for sure. And even I started with my voice, I'm ending with my voice. I'm using it kind of like a thesaurus. But this is a gray area. And what I mean by that is that it really depends on the prompt. Are you writing a first draft, shitty story, first chapter, and feeding it into AI and saying, make this good? You know what I mean? Is that a gray area, or is that just flat out wrong? You know what I mean? And that's
Yeah.
That's where it gets murky. That's where it gets really, really tricky, because in some ways you could say that person had the original idea. But I mean, you're really asking it to rewrite at that point.
Yeah.
So I'm curious kind of what you think about all that stuff. And I want to also, while we're on the topic of gray areas, for all the artists listening, which there might be a couple out there, there's one thing I'm going to mention with that here in a minute. But what are your thoughts on this, Wesley?
So one of these things I never thought of until just now when you mentioned it. I'll save that for last, actually. I'll start with your rewriting part and kind of work into the other thing.
Yeah.
So I'll go back to what I said in the last episode. You know, whatever the version of AI would be, or whatever work that you're having AI do, whatever version of a person that would be, is where I think the moral line is. So if you're having it rewrite something, some of your writing's in there, some of its writing is in there, it's your idea, that's a co-writer. And
right.
Again, if you're willing to put chat GPT or whatever engine you're using on the cover as a co-writer, cool.
Yeah.
I have no problem with that. From any moral standpoint, I'm not going to judge you. If you're hiding it though, you're not really doing the work.
Right.
And that's kind of again, I'm saying this with the intention that maybe I'll change my mind down the road if I learn more information about it, or, you know, everybody's free to change their mind. But at the moment, that's kind of where I stand, and that's where I would draw that line.
Yeah.
If you want to do it, cool. Just be honest about it, and, you know, we can all go from there and make our own choices. The story ideas, though, that you mentioned, outlines, again, that's weird, because that's like you're almost using AI like a book doctor or a co-writer or something like that. So again, I'm going to kind of go back to what I just said with outlines.
Right.
Story ideas, though, this is the one that I haven't thought of before for AI. It's just never crossed my mind for whatever reason. Well, basically, you're looking at, if I understood you correctly, you're like talking about typing into AI, at least as an example. I know you said you didn't do this, but as an example, like, give me some ideas for a fantasy book where knights fight a dragon or something.
Right. Right.
And it gives you, it's almost giving you the prompt at that point of, you know,
right.
Write this. I actually don't have a problem with that at all.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, being the more anti-AI person, I think like that's a little odd that I have no problem with that. But honestly, the ideas are cheap, man. Really, the work of writing is writing the damn thing, right?
Right.
And, you know, I'm a big fan of Brandon Sanderson and his college course lectures. One of the things that he talks about almost every year when he does these is this story that he got secondhand that he verified from the author. So before he was big, he was on some early writers forum on a website, probably before Facebook ever came out. Okay, so Jim Butcher is talking to some guy on the internet, and they're getting in an argument about basically the other guy's saying, what makes a good author is having a great idea and then writing that. And he's like, no, ideas don't matter.
Yeah.
You know? And they're going back and forth. And basically Jim's finally like, fine, give me your 2 worst ideas. I will write a book about that.
Huh.
And the dude's like, the Lost Roman Legion and Pokemon. And he wrote what turned out to be like a best-selling series of books off that idea.
That's awesome.
So that's a really long-winded way of coming back around to saying,
yeah,
I don't think getting a story idea from an AI engine or a prompt on the internet or overhearing somebody's conversation or whatever. It's just the spark.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what makes a real writer is turning that into an actual story.
Yeah.
So
no, I wholeheartedly agree. Again, I haven't used this, right? Like the prompts are usually just from up here, you know what I mean? Or like something in like you're saying, like overhearing a conversation or having a conversation with someone. You know, I've had a few of my ideas just from like, you know, you're talking to a coworker at work and you go down the rabbit hole and you walk away from the conversation and go, oh man, that would make a cool book. And then you go write it, kind of thing, or story or whatever. So I've had that happen.
Or for me, I'm like, hey Nathan, I've got this really cool idea. Map out all of the plot points and then never fucking touch it.
Boo! Boo!
But you know, it's fine. It's fine. No, I really, in general, I agree with you that although some might find that murky, I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right. A story isn't just the idea. You know, it's a mood, it's a setting, it's a character, it's conflict, it's journey. It's so much of that. And that is the one thing, rightfully so, that I think we've discovered is that AI can't take you on a journey. It can't add that internal conflict. It might know where it should go or what the theme should be, but it can't execute it in a way that makes sense in a linear fashion, especially if you go to long form writing. Yeah. We're nowhere near, 120,000 word AI generated book that makes sense at all.
Does not understand the big picture.
No,
not from any example I've seen.
No, you're not going to read it and go, oh, I really love character B. You know what I mean? As far as like reworking stuff and so on. So I kind of want to just say like, and again, I know kind of we're not in different camps on this at all. I think we're both very like glass half full, glass half empty. Like we're both like in the same place, but one of us looks at it a little bit more positive, one of us a little bit more negative kind of thing, right?
Which one of us is the cynical one?
I don't know. No, I think again, it's like reclaiming it, like I said on the last show, as a tool. It's weird because like even reading through the AI generated story, or as much as I could get through, there's like metaphors and like beats in there that like remind me of shit that I've actually written. You know what I mean? Because it's so generic. I'm not saying I'm generic, but like we've said before in past shows, right. Sometimes there's a reason why a certain metaphor or a certain thing is generic is because it works, right? A certain story structure or something, it works. And because
that's what cliche is, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it's a good idea that it's just been used over and over again until everybody's like, fuck, I'm tired of this.
Right. The problem is with AI, instead of using the cliche idea once in the paragraph, you use it 7 times in the paragraph, right? Because I use cliches all the time. I on my next book, in the first chapter, I use chill up their spine or something like that, but it's like a chill up their marshmallow filled bodies or something. It's something else, like, it's like
put a spin on it.
Yeah, of course, because like that's me, right? But like then you read that and you go, here's where I start to worry. And I've seen this happen with art too. I worry that people are going to start to suspect everybody is using AI for everything. And that, because here's the thing, I've put stories and art into AI detectors before that were 100% not using AI, and it will say it's AI or 60% AI or 90% chances is AI, and we're talking about stuff that like is totally not, that like free hand drawing stuff. So I don't, for one, I'm going to say this to everybody out there, do not trust anything that scans for AI. I don't think it's good enough yet. And I think what it does is it turns a community against itself. And we first saw this happen with art. On all the art pages, people started just assuming everything that was posted there was generated with AI. If someone got weird and wacky with their drawing, right, and the hands looked a little weird because maybe they just can't draw fucking hands, they're like, AI, pitchfork, burn. Yeah. That's not always the case, guys. Like, honestly, and that's the thing I think that frustrates me more so is we're basically just turning on each other, within that field.
And I actually ran into that with this cover. So that group that I told you about, that's a fantastic group. So I can't say enough good things about them. It's a private group on Facebook, tons of members. People post their book covers and blurbs, and people help them work on their blurbs and book covers. But AI is allowed on there. Like, there's nobody saying you can't have it, but there is a part of the group rules that you're supposed to state. If it is AI, you're supposed to state it.
Right.
Which is fine. Again, I think that's honest, cool.
Yeah.
But it does turn into, it turns into a thing. It turns into like, people accusing each other of it. And my book got accused of it, not a lot, but by one or two people.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, I can show you the Photoshop file and like, the 50, 60 fucking layers that I have.
Right.
It's a huge Photoshop file for that book cover. And I can even walk you through how I did every piece of it. And, and there was actually a few cheats. So like the blue passenger's face, how it's like pixelated and that kind of thing. It's what's called a Photoshop action. So basically, for anybody that's listening, an action is just somebody that's really good at Photoshop has basically pre-made some type of effect, and it's going to have a little bit of a different effect on depending on what file it's on, and it basically looks for certain colors or certain shapes and does something else to it. And it will do like 2 hours or so worth of work in a few seconds.
Nice.
But it was a human going through that. It's like a macro, like,
right.
But you can buy those, and it is a little bit of a cheat still, but it's not AI.
Yeah.
So I used one of those, but anyway, I'm totally getting off track here.
No.
But I totally agree with you. Like, that's, we need to be careful how we're approaching that.
Yeah.
Because there is some moral implications here, and there is, like, there's nothing wrong with a community policing itself, but we need to be careful of that mob mentality too.
Yeah, because here's the thing, and it's gonna happen. I know it's already happening. Like you said, with like the cover for your book, is we're gonna go after the wrong person, who is maybe the next great author of our time, and has written this amazing thing, and it's their first book, and someone's going to read it and see a few telltale signs that, oh, this must be AI generated, or feed it into that, and it's going to be like AI detected. And even if this dude, it all came from his head, and he's going to be the next great writer of our time.
Or she.
Yes, thank you. Or they.
Or they.
And you're going to cut them off at the legs, and they're going to struggle to get their head above water after that fact, because you've left a sour taste in their mouth. There is no way to prove, unless it actually reads like what we had earlier on the show, there's no way to prove that something is 100% been generated by AI in art or text. Now, you can kind of tell, and there might be, but I would just be really, really careful of that. When it comes to art, though, and so I use AI. I do a lot of art for my Gothic novellas, and a lot of times for references when I'm drawing, I'll use AI. So I'll be like, show me a wall. Right?
I was about to freak out because I thought you were about to tell me that you use AI for that. I'm like, those look like fucking drawings, man.
No, they're all drawings. They're 100% all
drawings. Those look like. All right, cool.
Yeah. No, they're all drawings. A lot of watercolor, a lot of angry emotions, a lot of emo-ness going on there.
I would be very surprised if those were AI.
Yeah. But like shapes, and like show me a tree, show me like even some like show me like a jawline with like sharp teeth, like something that I can like reference. I am a strong supporter of people using AI for this, and I'll tell you why. The reason why I think it's a good idea to use that is, let's say I wanted to draw an apple, right? And I would say, show me an apple into an AI generator. It's going to show me an apple, and say I kind of try to draw that-ish. I use that as my reference. If I Google an apple and a picture shows up of an apple, that's either someone's photo they've taken or someone's actual drawing that they've done already. And I am using that as my reference. In some weird way, I actually feel like it's morally less of a gray area to use AI for that. And I know artists will disagree with me on that. I'm not an artist. I have my own little style and stuff like that, but that's where it ends. I feel better about using AI to generate things that I can use as a reference than using someone else's work. Makes me feel better about it.
Yeah, that's an interesting way of looking at it. I like that. And also that's very actually analogous to what Andrea told us about her fight scenes.
Yeah.
Right? Because she told us that if she has a fight scene that she has trouble imagining, she'll have AI generate that, and then she'll be like, okay, that's kind of how that might work.
Yeah.
And then she writes her own version of that.
Yeah.
Probably with some changes in there and everything, but
oh yeah, I'm sure.
Uses
Plenty.
like some rough structure, like that's the scaffolding or the reference point.
Right.
So it's actually very similar. And you say that's a gray area, but I don't know. That doesn't even seem that gray to me. I don't think that's actually.
Yeah. And I think it's about how you look at it, right? So if I just without zero context say, oh, I love to use AI for references for art. If I just left it there and didn't explain myself, I think it would come across as icky to a lot of artists. And it probably still does, to be fair. But if you translate that now into writing, and I was like, I like to use AI for references for my writing sometimes so I can visually see something, but then I always drastically rework it, and it's always my words. If I don't put that little but then at the end of it, that's where it would sound murky, right? Because context is king. And that's what I found so much with the AI conversation, is that context is really king. You have to explain it in a way to yourself and other people that makes you be able to sleep at night and know that this is my story, these are my characters. If it's art, these are my scribbles, whatever the case may be. And you can sit there and say, you might look at it later on and say, yeah, I remember when I fed that line into AI and it was like, what are you, stupid? You can't say it like that. And then I had to rework it because it didn't make sense. You might see that as like a negative, but if you're okay with that, if you can come to terms with that, that's where you start to use it as a tool, right? It's like a knife, right? You can use a knife to, cut a tomato or stab someone. What's AI to you? What kind of knife are you going to use it for? And I know that's like an old kind of cliche, if you will.
I don't know why it can't be both.
Right. What's funny though is it can, and that's the thing. I think though we need to get past the idea that's coming for our creative juices, and that we're going to have our community turn on each other because of it. It's already happened in the art community a lot, and it's really kind of torn the art community apart. I've seen it happen so much. I haven't had it happen as much in the writers community, and I like to think as writers that we're smarter than artists. I'm just kidding. It's because my brother's listening, and he's a moron. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. Did we just have him on as a guest?
He was all right.
Yeah, he's all right. But yeah, no, I like I said, it's just all about context. So yeah, those are my gray areas, essentially, which I think we've kind of come up with the fact that, again, within the context and so on, maybe they're not as gray as we think. And I think it's a tightrope walk, though, because it doesn't take very much to trip over to the other side of it being morally wrong, or morally right. That's why I'd say it's murky. It's all about, like I said, context.
And opinion, too, because,
yeah.
What I find morally repugnant, some people are going to be completely fine with.
Right.
And that doesn't make me right or them right. It's just different opinions.
Okay, so let's go into probably the shortest thing I have, which is what is just morally wrong. And so my thing for this would be basically what we had at the top of our last show, which is you fed a prompt into AI, you copy and pasted it, you put it into a Word document, you put your name on it, and you said, here's my book, I wrote it. Or you put in a prompt to an art generator and it popped up and you said, okay, and you saved a file and then printed it. And it was like, that'll be $15 for a print, right? So those right there. Now, do I think you could print off that AI thing and cut it up into pieces and throw it on a canvas and cover it with other paints and change it into whatever and take your own brush to it? And sure. Do I think you could feed a prompt into AI and, like we kind of talked about, take a rough story idea or something and generate a whole world off that? Yeah. But just passing something off as your creation and doing literally nothing to it. And I'm not even talking about like co-written by AI. I'm talking about just passing it off as your own 100%, and you did basically nothing.
Yeah.
I don't think we're there yet.
Opinion.
Yeah. See, that's where I find that. I find almost any other version of that is a gray area except for this one. Like, this is the hard no for me. You know what I mean? This is the safe word, AI. Pineapple.
I'm looking something up right now because it's kind of apropos to this. This might turn your stomach a little bit. New publisher titled Spines. So Spines is the publisher imprint name.
Okay.
Aims to disrupt the industry by using AI generated books. Their plan is to publish 8,000 books in 2025.
Oh my God.
So I think there was data on this for, where is it at?
I remember seeing something about this. I don't have anything to add to it, but I do remember seeing a blurb about this and just. Yeah.
I don't know if there is anything to add up to that. Like, that is other than it's gross. It's wrong on a lot of levels. So besides even using AI,
right,
what you're talking about doing is flooding an already saturated market, which is going to make every other book published that year, this year, because they're planning on doing it in 2025. I don't know how far along they are with it.
Yeah.
But that just makes all of those other books even harder to find and harder to stand out. And people use cliches like, oh, cream rises to the top and things like that, but that's not always true.
It doesn't nowadays, though, and I'll tell you why it doesn't. It's the same reason why in music it doesn't either. It's because it's a blessing and a curse. It has become so much easier to release a book online and to do print-on-demand stuff or to ship directly out of KDP that anybody with zero startup and a really good idea and then a laptop can publish a book. And
they don't need a really good idea.
That's true. We just got that, right? Anybody with a laptop and some time can publish a book. And so, like, it happened in music too, right? When people were able to start recording in their homes, everybody had an album. Everybody had a band. Everybody could make their magnum opus. You know what I mean? And in that sense, cream didn't rise to the top. It just saturated the market, and it became really hard. So we're already there as writers. It's already a saturated, like you were saying, it's already a saturated market. In some ways, that's awesome because I'm a really cheap dude. And if there weren't like print-on-demand options and stuff like that, like if I had to like shell out like $20,000 to like press a book, you know, I'm not going to do it. You know what I mean? My wife's not going to let me take out that kind of money. You know what I mean?
Option would be playing the query game for, possibly years on end.
Right.
So,
but if you want to be self-published, put out a book, share it with your family and friends. Maybe you're not going to succeed at it, or maybe you are going to succeed at it, but in your own way, whatever success is to you.
Yeah.
You want to do some conventions. You want to hang out with some other writers. You want to do all that stuff. Sell a few copies, That's great. And you can do that nowadays, which is so awesome. I love that. But then to flood that market that's already way more flooded than it was 10 years ago with, 8,000 more releases that are all AI generated, and for what? Like that's my thing. Like, what is the moral implication point that these guys are trying to make? These pricks who are just like, there's no other way to say it. They're just they're being disruptors for the simple fact that like it's like mommy didn't love them enough. Like I know that sounds like really mean, but like there's no logical reason to do this. All you're doing is cutting artists off at the legs and just thinking it's funny. Like, to me, it seems like they just think it's funny.
Right. So, I mean, when people talk about disrupting an industry being a good thing, it often is, right? Like, so, but what they're talking about is disrupting an establishment,
right?
Trying to break apart monopolies, flip an industry on its head that's been languishing in mediocrity.
Right.
We don't have that in the arts. In fact, we have, like you said, the self-publishing revolution kind of created a bit of a renaissance for writers. And the downside of that is that there's a lot of us selling, tens or a couple hundred copies of a book or whatever. And that's kind of what success has to mean for us for that. But whatever, that's still better than nothing.
Yeah.
And sometimes you do hit that jackpot.
Yeah.
But doing something like this, you're disrupting, I don't know, regular people.
Right. Yeah.
Like,
and that's the thing. I get that there's only like so many big publishers out there, and maybe their thought is like, oh, disrupt the big publishers. But here's the thing. You're not going to screw them over. They don't care. They're going to have their books in every single store, and they're going to pay the money to do the advertising that's going to throw them on the top of the Amazon page regardless. So they're going to sell their books no matter what you do. The only thing you're going to do is screw over the people like us who maybe, like, for me, success for me is like within the ecosystem, right? So I want to be a success and a known author in Colorado. That's what success is for me.
Sure.
Right? Like that's more than anything else. I love the idea that we do these conventions and we constantly see people come up to us and be like, oh, I have this book. What do you have that's new? Or I read this and I really loved it. Or I read this and I hated it. Whatever. It's fine. But it's gotten to that point now where we're at so many conventions where a lot of people know us, right? So that's what success is for me, which isn't asking very much. But if you flood the market with 8,000 releases that no one worked on except for hidden copy and paste, basically, then you are just screwing over my success, not, Penguin Publishing or whoever. You know what I mean? Like, so yeah, it's icky. It's icky. And that is when I say like, what's morally, when we're talking about good, gray, and bad, that's so far on the bad scale of things that it's like they miss the plot completely. So yeah, that's my rant for that.
I agree. That's kind of why I brought him up, because it's pretty awful. And I've heard it. I've heard some authors talk like that on a smaller scale, like, oh, I'm going to be able to release, 10, 20 books this year.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they actually did it. This is just like people talking on the internet, so who fucking knows?
Right.
But are you doing anybody any favors by doing that? Like,
no.
You might make a little bit of money because you might get a handful of sales off each book.
Right.
I can't imagine those books are going to be good enough to actually build a fan base.
Yeah.
What? I don't know. I guess I don't even understand the mentality behind that sort of thing.
No, absolutely not. Okay, so that's talking about like 100% generated by AI. We talked about it at the top of the last show. An author in Japan who 5% of her book, I believe, was AI generated word for word. We don't know exactly how that prompting went and so on, but it won a bunch of awards and a bunch of stuff. And then after the fact, she came out and said, blah, 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 blah. My question to you is this: is there a magic number? If you were to take, 30,000 words and throw a percentage on it of stuff that AI helped with, whether it's editing, generating ideas, whatever, what percentage of a creative project could be generated by AI where you would feel morally okay? Is my question to you, Wesley.
So first off, I guess what the question is without me disclosing it. Because I already mentioned that I feel like I don't want to do it, but I don't feel like there's anything morally wrong with somebody as long as they disclose what they're doing.
Right.
You know, that's all cool. I'm not really going to partake. I'm probably not going to buy your book if you wrote with AI. I might check it out just out of like curiosity, like that morbid, like, but I've done that with some really bad books just because. I guess the real question is, what would I be willing to do without disclosing? And that goes back to my discussion last episode where I just talked about like, what would I do with a regular person? So how much help could I get from a regular person without putting them in my acknowledgments at least?
Yeah.
That would be very little.
Yeah.
We're probably talking about less than 1%.
Okay.
So if somebody was like critiquing my book or something, was like, hey, this sentence is worded odd, you should probably reword that. Or maybe they even gave me an example. They're like, hey,
yeah,
try it this way. I probably wouldn't feel the need to thank them for that one sentence.
Right.
So I guess that would be okay if somebody like helped me like bounce one idea off of like back and forth or something, or give me an idea. Like, probably not.
Yeah,
but that bar would be pretty damn low.
Pretty low. Yeah. Okay. So no, and I totally get that. For me, I think I actually don't hate the 5% mark, but I will say this. The thing that bugs me about the 5% mark from this author from Japan is that they're saying 5% of it was word for word.
Yes.
That bugs me. So here's the thing. I think, say 5% of your book is restructured or helped by AI in some way. I would not feel comfortable with that just going copy and paste. You know what I mean? I would have to read that thing.
There is a distinction, isn't there?
Right. Yeah. I would have to read it 20 times and be like, okay, I'm going to change this. Even if it, again, I feel like even if it's giving you that skeletal feeling, maybe you like one metaphor in there. And you're like, that's a cool metaphor. And you take that from there. Chances are, as we found out with AI, it's probably going to be kind of a cliche metaphor anyway. So you're not really breaking new ground. It's not going to like reinvent it. You know what I mean? But you might say, oh, that's a cool way to describe that. And you want to use that. I would be okay with that. But again, you can't just take the whole sentence and be like, boop. To me, it's like, I like this, or I like this structure. And then rewording it. Like, I wouldn't even if it worded it perfectly, I'm going to be honest with you, I would not feel comfortable putting it in there.
You'd want to change something, right?
I would want to change it. Yeah, 100%. Like, and I would probably get a little bit obsessed, and I have, because like I've told you before, I've used it for this where I can't figure out this line.
Right.
I haven't just copy and pasted it. I put it in there, and then I probably unhealthily so obsessed with redoing it so that I feel I can go to bed that night going, yeah, that's my words. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Again, I think it's context. It's like setting yourself up for success and then taking over. You know, it's like AI starts the race and then like hands you the baton or something, and you're like later, and you're the one that's actually running it. You know what I mean? And so it's a weird thing. Like I said, this is still so brand new that we're all working through the fear of it, the acceptance of it. You know, there's kids that are in high school who think it's the greatest thing ever because they can have fun with it. You know what I mean? It's and myself too. Like I've done things where I'm like, write me a scene with Neil Breen and Tommy Wiseau having a conversation in the bar. And it will take my two favorite directors who do terrible movies and have them talk to each other. And it's hilarious.
I can't believe you just admitted those are your favorites.
I'm going to say favorites for not the reasons most people are thinking. It's the so bad it's good. Kitty. Oh.
I'm not sure if we should cut that out or not.
No, I don't think so. People love cats, dude. AI told me so. But as we progress through this and we get closer, I think kind of not necessarily the point I want to end with is actually something that you said, Wesley. When I go to our treatment over here, let's discuss the hype surrounding AI. And I feel like you have a lot to say about this, so I'm going to kind of pass it over to you. But I think out of all this stuff, and I feel like we've had a lot of really, really good stuff in here, I feel like this really gets down to the nuts and bolts of this whole conversation.
Yeah, so this is actually a pretty recent thought that I had. Actually, I kind of came up with this as we were trying to figure out this episode. I kept trying to reconcile all of these really bad examples of AI writing. And we went through the one that I had that was very brief, your 6,000 word masterpiece that neither one of us could finish. There was the one that I talked about that I watched on that other YouTube channel, Unresolved Textual Tension. I remember the name now. There was another one on another YouTube channel that I don't remember because it's it's not an actual channel that I watch. I just saw that one video where another author did the exact same thing, fed it prompts, and actually did the best it could. And it gave him a real big piece of shit. And I kept trying to reconcile all of this crap that I'm seeing with all of the worry and hype and everything that we're hearing, and stuff that's scaring the shit out of a lot of us. And then other people like that publisher that we talked about is basically just trying to use it to cash in and things like that. And I kind of just, where is the push and pull here? What's going on? And I started thinking, okay, yes, you can go to ChatGPT and use it for free to some extent, right? You can ask it questions and get a little bit out of it for free. I think the Facebook one is free, right?
Yeah, it's still limited though. Within
it's very limited.
Yeah, it's like how many words you can pull out and stuff. Like
right.
You can't just be write me a 70,000 word great American novel. Yeah, and it was like, I can't do that, but here's an idea for a book is what it came back with me.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, definitely limited.
So yeah, you get a limited version for free. You get Microsoft has Copilot, which you have credits for that you have to pay for, or that are part of your subscription. Basically what I'm getting at is they're all selling us something.
Right.
And particularly the ones that are talking about being good for fiction writing, like Pseudo-Write is one that I see advertisements for. And actually, I think that's the one that I played with when I did Choosing Chaos, those 2 chapters. And what else is there? There's, I don't know. There's probably at least half dozen of them that I've seen advertisements for. Which after doing a little bit of research for this show, I'll probably see a lot more advertisements for them. But they're all subscription models, right? Pay $30 a month, or if you want the deluxe package, it's more, etc. And the job of marketing is to sell the product.
Yep.
And they're going to try to make it look as good as they can.
Absolutely.
I'm wondering how much of our own fear mongering and this death spiral that we've gotten into and the worry that we have is really just because of some marketing assholes that are trying to sell us subscription models to write shitty books.
Amen.
I mean, I don't know if that's true, but it kind of seems true.
It's 100% true. And I'll tell you why it's 100% true is because, basically any program, any app, anything you go into, there's now some kind of AI associated with it. Try our new AI, blah, 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 blah. Either subscription based or it makes you engage with the app more. So you want to be on it more so their advertisers can sell you more shit. And that is, we are a consumer base, right? And the entire earth is based on money and consumption and marketing and sales. So of course, they're not going to try to sell you a product and say it's inferior to the real thing. You know what I mean? Like, if that's the whole point of it, they're not going to say, come check out Second Best. You know what I mean? Like, that would be bad
Almost
marketing.
as good as doing it yourself.
Right, exactly.
It's not even almost. That would still be hyperbole.
Right, exactly. So, yeah, especially when it's art-based, right, where it's art or writing or music or any of that stuff. It is going to sell itself to you as it's amazing. And then that one time out of 100 where it actually hits the mark, that's the thing that you're going to see. That's the thing that's going to sell. That's going to be the TikTok that has 1 million views. And that's not by mistake. That's by design. You know what I mean? That's how they're selling it. But the truth of the matter is I don't want to sit there for months feeding in prompts to AI, hoping to get one of those 1 out of 100 times where it's perfection without me having to do any work. I could write a fucking book in that time. You know what I mean? Like,
and be proud of it.
So I think you're absolutely right. I think the fear mongering and all that stuff, I think they're trying to sell something, but what they've unintentionally done is turned a community in upon itself with people pointing fingers constantly. You know, we're that Spider-Man meme where they're all pointing at each other, you know, that's what, like, and less so in the author community, but especially in the art community, it's starting to become in the music community. We're all pointing at each other. Anytime someone does anything that's better than what we've done, we assume they used AI,
which is ironic because
right,
everything that we're seeing from AI is actually
worse.
It's pretty inferior.
And again, if you're worse than AI and you've just started, don't let that deter you. Just just get
Keep
better.
working.
Just get better. And I guarantee you have a better voice than it does. You know what I mean? Like, when it comes down to it.
That is the crazy thing, right? Like, we had an entire episode about voice, but everything that I've seen from AI has no voice.
No, it's generic.
It has no personality. It's just...
And even if it had personality, the personality that's going to have is it's going to be based on the programming still for it, which is inherently at the end of the day, it's still human, right? It's still made by humans who are programming, it. So you have different AI models and so on and so forth. And they're all going to have different tricks and different ways that they pull information from the internet or from, whatever their corresponding file list is, whatever they have at their disposal to come up with your answers. And so no matter what, it's like if you use the same AI model for 3 different books, they're all written by that AI model. It's so boring. It's already going to be, one chapter is going to be boring. Imagine a whole book. It's just there, and there's no connection, which is weird because here's the ironic thing with AI. So for my new book, I've been doing the plot hole thing where I'll like upload a chapter and be like, check for plot holes or grammatical errors or whatever. It does learn because I had a chapter that I uploaded where I don't mention that the character Xander is a fox, and it came back and called it a fox. So that means, several weeks before that, when I'd uploaded the last thing and had it look it over, it remembered that. Now, this is all just file storage and stuff like that. So it does, quote unquote, learn-ish. But the ironic thing is even though it can do that and it can progressively see patterns and stuff like that, which is probably why big businesses want to use it for certain inventory purposes and this and that and whatever, it still can't put together a linear storyline that makes sense in any way, unless it's like a kid's book. Yeah, you could probably generate an okay kid's book using AI, I guess. I mean, but that's so like that's like an
Maybe.
Afternoon.
Yeah,
and even then, like, it's still not. It's not there. It's not there. You're still going to see something in there that makes zero sense, or that is just turns your gut when you read it and go, "Oh God, that's so bad." But
now, do you think it's going to get, like, obviously it's going to get better,
right?
But do you see it getting good enough to actually
fool people? Unfortunately, probably. But here's where, so there is a sense of like, yes, I get the fear from people in that sense. There is probably a point. My guess is by the time that happens, maybe AI detection has gone better, because it's really right now it doesn't really work. Even outside of that, even if it doesn't, we're just going to have to come to the terms with this is the world we live in. And that's what I mean by reclaiming it, is for every one asshole out there who is going to use AI to generate an entire novel and sell it online, we need 10 other writers who are going to go in and use it for grammar or something like that. You know what I mean? Like reclaim it as a community to say, no, you don't get to use it like this, because you're always going to have assholes that use things in the wrong or immoral way. It's always going to happen. It's always going to be there. So even if the model gets so good, it's going to be there, right? And so at that point, I mean, I don't know what we do as a community, but we got to keep writing. And I would rather give the people who are making these models an incentive to make them better as a tool versus in a fake, that they would maybe invest like the money and the research into making it do that better than the other. Maybe making it less human and making it more precise. And this is me being like glass half full totally, because I but think about it. If you have like one guy who's willing to pay for a month of the AI thing just so he can like mass generate books, and then you have 10 authors separately willing to pay for a month because they just want to use it to make sure they're using commas correctly, like maybe they'll invest the money in that way, and that's the best I can give. But then again, who knows how far AI goes? I think outside of arts, what's interesting though is because we're all really poor, like none of us have a lot of money, right? It's probably going to be we're all freaking out about art and like generating novels and stuff like that. Chances are these companies are going to invest more in like big business side of things, because like that's where the money is, right? Like I'm not going to make or break that company, but like the CEO of some Fortune 500 company that wants to use it to replace half of his workers, like that's more the scary thing. And we're not going to get into that, but like to me, I'm like, that's probably more where your fear should be versus like, just,
that's a good point.
Keep writing, just keep creating. And you know what? If you create something and some people are like, oh, is that AI generated? Oh, it doesn't look like you drew that. Oh, just let it roll off your back, especially if you can go to bed at night and sleep and you know that you're in the right. Because at the end of the day, like, that's got to go away eventually, right? Because the one thing is, if it gets so good that you can't tell, we're going to just have to start liking stories to like stories. And we're going to have to trust that writers are just going to be that good and that honest. And there's nothing really we can do about it. So you might as well like stop pointing fingers at your fellow author and like, point fingers at the big conglomerate machine, that's making it happen or something, damn the man kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, I think that's my takeaway from all this is it's coming down the pipe. Regardless, right? Like it's gonna happen.
Yeah, we can't really stop it.
Yeah, we're not gonna stop it. But the thing we don't want to do is alienate people who are actually creating original things, even if they are using it as a tool or something like that. Like why alienate someone if 1% of their entire book has been ran through an AI generator for something? Like why shame them for that if they're still putting out something original? You know what I mean? Like,
well, and honestly, if it's that small, you wouldn't even. I mean, how would you even fucking know?
Right. It's funny though. I think that's something though in the author community, more so in the artist community, but in the author community too. It's like if it's better than you assume they're cheating. You know what I mean? Like, and that is something that not from all authors or anything like that, but usually like the really like pretentious folks who are like, I don't know, they just assume. They're like, they have a couple books that they've worked a really long time on, and then you have like 8 books, and they're like, you used AI, didn't you? But like there's a local author here who this guy has so many books, but he's been doing it for years, and he does like fantasy stuff, and he's at all the conventions. Dude has a huge following. He's been published. He pulled out of doing that, does his own thing. it's Mark something. I can't remember his name. Or is it Todd? Todd or Mark? I don't remember. Anyway, sorry. But
it's a name.
It's a name. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of people out there that look at him and that guy, AI, Dude is not like tech smart. I'm just gonna tell you this right now. I've talked to him many, many times. Like, he doesn't really even know what AI, like how it's used or anything. This dude just loves to write, and he writes all the time.
Yeah.
And that's his gift, So just be really careful about pointing fingers, because, man, you don't want to like knock somebody down when they're creating. That's the whole thing. It's like, it's all interpretation, and the whole point of this is basically to turn ourselves against each other. Not saying that was the reasoning for it, but that's the unintentional outcome of so much of this.
I mean, I don't even think these people built the large language models with the idea of fiction writing in mind. Like,
right.
They were building this up for business purposes and other things. It's just like a side gig that it can be used that way.
Yeah, it's like an unintentional side effect for the program, where all of a sudden it's like it can do art and it can do this, but really they wanted it to help run financials and generate logos. You know what I mean? Like, and that totally makes sense. Yeah. So I think that's all we have to say about AI right now. I'll feed this transcript into ChatGPT though, and let it tell me if we have more to say to our supreme overlords. I think we'll probably do another episode on this with like a roundtable at some point. If you have opinions on this that aren't, maybe don't be angry about it, but if you have opinions on this, please comment on our YouTube video, or I don't know how the podcast work. Can people comment on podcasts? I don't think so. Go to our YouTube and comment. Thumbs up, like, subscribe, follow us, Amazon, iTunes,
all that stuff,
all the places.
Yep.
And join us next week for something totally different. I don't even know what we're going to talk about next week, but we finally did this one. And for our one of our favorite listeners out there, I guarantee M. Night Shyamalan doesn't use AI.
What a twist!
There's a Shyamalan reference.
Oh, fuck.
All right.
It was a little forced, but good job.
Yeah, That's how you know it wasn't AI generated. Wesley, you have a website that people can go to, correct?
WesleyWatts.com.
Go and check out Me and the Machine.
And yours is harmspublications.com, right?
That is correct. Go and check out. Yeah, like the last name. We want to thank you for listening, and we hope you have enjoyed our conversation on AI. Until next time, bye.